Good evening, and welcome to the 30th anniversary of the Lucy G. Moses Preservation Awards, the Oscars of Preservation. You've just seen some of the many projects we've awarded through the years. I'm Peg Breen, president of the New York Landmarks Conservancy. The Lucys are our happiest and largest event. It's always wonderful to welcome the hundreds of you who come. I'm sorry we couldn't be together this year. But the 30th anniversary is worth celebrating, and that's what we're going to do. In fact, we have special awards for the people who founded the Lucys and got us off to a great start. Stephen Lash, a longtime Conservancy board member and former chair, knew Lucy Moses. He had the vision to ask her to underwrite these awards.
Lucy Moses was an aristocratic, elderly, tiny little woman full of energy, enthusiasm, philanthropy, excitement. She loved New York. She and I got along very well. She lived in a landmark building. She was supportive of my interest in landmarks. But what she did do was buy into the idea of maintaining and preserving New York, to which she was devoted. She was a longtime resident of the city, as were even her parents. It was a way of her giving back, which is what she liked to do most. It never occurred to me in day one that there would be this day, but it's very exciting and gratifying to have an idea and watch it grow and watch talented people like you develop it into something really grand and important.
Former Conservancy President Susan Henshaw Jones had the initiative and skill to pull the awards together.
We created the Lucy Moses Award as a means of raising our public profile. At that time, the Conservancy was focusing on the preservation and reuse of landmark buildings by engaging in real estate. So we were an organization that really didn't have much of a public profile, really didn't do a lot of advocacy. We were sort of in the weeds, so to speak. So the Lucy Moses Award was an opportunity for us to raise our profile by giving awards to others. And little did we know that 30 years later, Stephen and Joe and I would be the recipients of these awards, and I think we're all very honored to receive it.
And Joseph Fishman of the Henry and Lucy Moses Fund has continued to support the awards through the years.
She had spent 60 years as a philanthropist. At the time we got involved with the Conservancy, she was over 100. Well, I think she'd be very proud of it. I assume she'd certainly be pleased with the work that the Conservancy has done. What has become of these awards? Well, I've enjoyed it. I've read the submissions and I go to the annual functions, and I've enjoyed it because it's something I'm interested in, and I'm glad that it's built up over the years, so it's been I think a boon to the Conservancy, and it's very interesting. It's amazing to see the kinds of things that do go on now.
Thank you, Joe. It is interesting. And it's also amazing how the Lucys have grown through the years. So thank you also, Susan and Stephen, and of course, Lucy Moses. Now let's see the projects earning Lucys this year. Belvedere Castle is one of the most beloved sites in Central Park. It was completed in 1871, part of Calvert Vaux's original design. The Central Park Conservancy completed an extensive restoration. It encompassed all three of the castle's wood pavilions and slate roofs. They even reconstructed a missing tower at the large pavilion on the main terrace. In other areas, clear glass replaced non-historic windows to provide an unobstructed view. The Conservancy disassembled and rebuilt parapet walls with effective drainage. They reconstructed stonework and terraces that suffered pervasive water infiltration. They cleaned and repointed the entire masonry, exterior and interior, to help prevent future water damage. They repaved the main terrace, following historic drawings. After all this attention to the historic details, a new geothermal exchange system for heating and cooling will benefit the Belvedere for years to come.
On behalf of the Central Park Conservancy, I'd like to thank the New York Landmarks Conservancy for this wonderful honor. And I want to especially acknowledge our terrific project team here at the Conservancy, led by Chris Nolan, our Chief Landscape Architect. And finally, I'd like to express our deepest appreciation to the Thompson Family Foundation, without whose generosity this project would not have taken place.
The 1894 former church missions house is now the New York home of FOTOGRAFISKA, a Stockholm-based photography museum. To prepare for its new use, the ornate carved limestone and granite facade was cleaned. Exterior lighting now accents the impressive stonework. The adjacent Calvary Church annex was fully restored and connected internally to the building. Cetra Ruddy led the project in collaboration with engineers Gilsans, Murray, Stefacek. The interior houses museum space, but also restaurants, bars, a bookstore, and space for public gatherings. The museum was immediately popular when it opened. We hope it will soon be filled again. This project reinvented vacant 19th century industrial warehouses on the Dumbo waterfront. They now house stores, contemporary workplaces, and a community hub. The 7-building complex was vacant and deteriorating for many years. But with the success of Brooklyn Bridge Park, Midtown Equities was finally picked to develop the site. Studio V, S9 Architecture, and Perkins Eastman collaborated on modernizing the buildings. But they also celebrated original elements. They highlighted the thick red brick exterior walls and round-arched windows. As Empire Stores, the complex has reclaimed its former status as a centerpiece of Brooklyn's shoreline.
Hi, my name is Jack Carey. On behalf of myself, my family, everybody at Midtown Equities, our partners at HK, as well as Studio V Architecture and S9 Architecture, we're very excited to be the recipients of this year's Lucy G. Moses Preservation Award for Empire Stores.
The Harlem Fire Watchtower is the last of a series of cast iron towers that once helped spotters alert local fire companies. Harlem residents had prized and protected this rare 1856 structure for decades. But by the 1990s, it was near collapse. Residents rallied again to get the city to fund its restoration. The Parks Department had the tower dismantled, sent away for restoration and replacement. They shipped the 5,000-pound bell to the Netherlands for brazing. All historic metals were painted in their original color. The copper roof was extended to its original dimensions, and a new bracing system was installed. The adjacent landscape at Marcus Garvey Park was modified to recreate the original setting and expand accessibility. This restoration is a wonderful example of preservation advocacy. The community welcomed the tower's return with ceremony and celebration. Contractor Gabriel Czech spent 3 summers restoring the exterior of the 1887 home he purchased in 2016. Known as the Doering-Bohack House, the charming neo-Grec Queen Anne building still had all its original wood siding. Mr. Czech stripped and repaired the siding, replacing damaged spots with reclaimed white cedar. He also rebuilt a prominent bay window. He removed deteriorating double-hung windows, rebuilt them on site, and reinstalled them. Finally, Mr. Czech replaced the non-original front porch. He used nearby buildings with original porches intact as models. He detailed the design in collaboration with his father, who works in historic preservation in Chicago. This lovely restored home is a wonderful anchor on its Bushwick corner.
Hello, my name is Gabriel Check, and I am the owner of the Doering-Bohack House. First, I'd like to thank the New York Landmarks Conservancy for this award. It truly is a great honor. Last, I'd really like to thank Kelly Carroll of the Historic Districts Council, for whose help I can honestly say I would not be here today accepting this award. So thank you to everybody.
The MCGRAW-HILL building is one of the city's Art Deco icons. Its distinctive colors stand out again after a meticulous restoration. Bands of blue and green glazed terracotta with bright orange accents. The building was an instant hit when it was built in the early 1930s. Publishers James McGraw and John Hill commissioned architect Raymond Hood to design it as their company headquarters. It's a local and national historic landmark. Owners Deco Tower Associates engaged Cosmo Veneziale, architect, to restore the facades and replace deteriorated windows. After researching the Raymond Hood archives, they repaired and restored original material wherever possible, including the original steel window frames. At the top, the 11-foot-tall MCGRAW-HILL sign was stripped. It revealed the original glaze preserved beneath. This beloved landmark is resplendent once again. We're giving the Department of Design and Construction and the Department of Citywide Administrative Services a combined award for restoring 3 impressive civic buildings. Each once again reflects the pride in New York that inspired them. This 1899 Beaux-Arts courthouse on Madison Square Park is one of the loveliest judicial buildings anywhere. Gannett Fleming architects and engineers restored windows, repaired the marble facade, replaced the copper fan house at the roof, and strengthened structural support of the figurative rooftop statues. Interior work repaired the beautiful courtroom with its famous murals. The 1907 Surrogate'S Courthouse is a magnificent example of the City Beautiful movement. Its soaring 3-story atrium is a stunner, but it suffered extensive damage from water infiltration. Urban architects replaced the skylight framing and repaired the copper drainage system. On the interior, they replaced lead light, lead caming, and broken or missing glass. They restored or replaced a number of other damaged pieces. This cherished public space is now restored to its original majesty. The Palazzo-inspired Sun Building was built as the city's first department store. Its name honors the newspaper it once housed. It's now filled with city offices and ground floor retail. Urban architects cleaned and repaired vast expanses of marble, restored wood windows and storefronts, replicated and replaced cast iron elements, and refurbished the historic clock and thermometer. After being hidden under scaffolding for years, the Sun Building is shining again.
On behalf of the more than 1,300 employees of the Department of Design and Construction who build the city's infrastructure and public buildings, I gladly accept these awards and send our thanks to the Landmarks Conservancy. These 3 great projects are examples of landmark buildings brought back to life with a thoughtfulness that escapes a lot of modern commercial construction. And we're so pleased that our Office of Historic Preservation, along with our architect and contracting partners, are able to support this work for our city's many historic buildings. Thanks.
The Church of St. Anselm and St. Roch was modeled after the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. It's one of the few examples of the Byzantine style in New York. The interior is filled with rare German craftwork, including mosaics, frescoes, and elaborate metalwork. Water infiltration was threatening this glorious interior. It was urgent to repair and restore the multiple roof domes and brickwork. The Archdiocese of New York stepped in to help. Harold Martinez of 2-4 Design Architecture oversaw the comprehensive work. The main dome got a new watertight membrane and copper cladding that matches the original. Lower roofs got new membranes and lead coping caps. The brick facade was selectively repointed and rebuilt. The work also restored or replaced leaded glass clear-story windows of the central dome and restored some of the stained glass windows. One of the most distinctive churches in the city is now secure. This 1884 firehouse operated continuously until 9/11. It is now part of the Henry Street settlement. Napoleon Lebrun designed the ornate building. Corinthian cast iron pilasters in floral patterns adorn the first level. Sawtooth brickwork highlights the upper floors. Gabled finials, terracotta floral panels, and a sheet metal cornice are at the roof. Buyer Blinder Bell restored the exterior, then worked on updating the interior. They created contemporary and accessible offices, but they also saved the original fire pole. It's integrated into the lobby reception desk. The Henry Street settlement has served the community for over 100 years. Thanks to them, the firehouse is serving the community again as well.
At Henry Street, we believe that the best way to shine a light on our future is to embrace our past and our history. And no project really embodies that belief like the project behind me. So we could not be more grateful to receive this award, and we could not be more grateful to be of such meaningful purpose at this challenging time for New York City. Thank you.
This Renaissance Revival style building was designed by architect George B. Post in 1895. It housed clothing and textile manufacturers and their retail branches for a century. The building suffered from several insensitive facade alterations. Retail entrances were a hodgepodge of tenant whims. Studios Architecture worked with restoration consultants Loci Architecture. They restored the exterior from the rooftop to the distinctive limestone piers. They also renovated the interior for today's tenants. The owners worked with the Landmarks Preservation Commission as the design took shape. The LPC was in the process of designating the building as an individual landmark. Now the restored facade's composure and elegance honors Post's original design. This stately colonial revival-style building once housed the Quartermaster General at Fort Totten. It was left vacant for decades as Fort Totten became a city park. In 2002, the Center for Women of New York began negotiations with the City Parks Department to adapt the building as the organization's headquarters. By the time multiple city and state agencies okayed this and the center completed fundraising, the building was in terrible condition. Page Ayers Cowley Architecture oversaw a massive cleanup. Then they went to work on restoring or replacing the roof, masonry, windows, and wood porch. They repaired surviving decorative elements on the interior. The center's long-anticipated ribbon cutting was finally held last December.
We're very proud to accept our 4th Lucy G. Moses Award. Thanks to our historically accurate renovation, it's now the headquarters for the Center for the Women of New York, who are enjoying a full, modern, and ADA accessible restoration. Thanks again for the important recognition of the designers and construction professionals who do this very important work.
This restoration finally removed 20 years of protective netting that shrouded the beautiful interior of St. Paul's. Howell & Stokes designed the Italian Renaissance-style chapel in 1907. It continues to be an architectural highlight of the Columbia University campus. Walter B. Melvin Architects oversaw the long-awaited exterior and interior restoration. They replaced the roof down to the substrate while protecting historic Guastavino tile. A new copper drainage system replicates the original. They cleaned and conserved deteriorating opalescent-style stained glass windows by D. Maitland Armstrong. They removed soot and candle smoke from interior Guastavino tiles and restored the apse and chancel. St. Paul was one of the city's earliest landmarks. This project returns Columbia's most beautiful building to its original glory. The TWA Hotel opened with well-deserved fanfare last year. The highlight was a stunning restoration of Eros Saarinen's TWA Flight Center as the entryway. This award salutes the restoration and reuse of this celebrated icon, which had been vacant for almost 2 decades. MCR Morse Development brought in buyer Belinda Bell to oversee the renewal. The exterior shell, curtain wall, and entrances were all restored. At the interior, new and reconstructed elements respect Saarinen's design. There's even a fashion section featuring TWA uniforms. A restored 1958 Lockheed Constellation sits behind the terminal and is now a cocktail lounge. Entering the terminal brings you back to its 60s glory days, while the hotel offers up-to-the-minute amenities.
On behalf of the 7,000 men and women that put this project together, the 176 consulting firms, the 22 government agencies, it took a village to bring back a masterpiece like this. Thank you to the Landmarks Conservancy for preserving great architecture and great buildings for future generations to enjoy. We're honored to be here again today, and on behalf of everyone, thank you very much.
The Landmarks Conservancy is all about preserving New York, so it's always wonderful to see the range of preservation projects that happen in the city each year. From the beginning, the Lucys have also honored individuals who have made exceptional contributions to preservation. We have 2 more people to add to that list. Stephen Briganti is receiving our award for public leadership. He's retiring this year as President and Chief Executive Officer of the Statue of Liberty Ellis Island Foundation. Steve helped rally nationwide support for restoring the statue. He oversaw the restoration and later expansion of the Ellis Island Museum. Last year, he opened a new museum on Liberty Island to great acclaim. Steve's vision and drive restored and transformed 2 of our most important and beloved national sites. We're proud to give Steve Briganti our Moses Public Leadership Award.
You know, the statue needed some work done to it. Substantial work, but work. It wasn't going to fall down. It wasn't going to go away. But Ellis was another story. Ellis, I don't know what would have happened to Ellis. I know that our founding father, Lee Iacocca, got Ellis Island put into the project. It was originally just going to be the Statue of Liberty. But someone had come to him to invest in a housing project on Ellis Island. And he said, how can you do that? How can you make this place where 40% of the population of the country can trace its roots? How can you make it a housing project? We've got to preserve this. We've got to make it something that honors American immigration, that is a symbol of American immigration, and reminds people that we are a nation of immigrants. As I look back, it's an incredible project to have been involved in. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of getting the Lucy Moses Award. And what more can I say? It's been a great honor to be a part of this project, and to be rewarded for it in this fashion is really great.
Our Preservation Leadership Award goes to Anthony C. Wood. In his more than 40-year career, Tony helped found the Historic Districts Council, Historic House Trust, Friends of the Upper East Side, and Neighborhood Preservation Center. He founded and leads the Preservation Archive Project, and he literally wrote the book on the city's landmarks law. He's taught at Columbia, chaired the Preservation League of New York State, advised the National Trust. He's tireless, erudite, and witty. We're delighted to present Tony with our Preservation Leadership Award.
Peg, many thanks to you and the Conservancy for this great honor. It was last century that I came to New York City with the dream of becoming involved in historic preservation. Thanks to some wonderful organizations, tops among them the J.M. Kaplan Fund and the Idelson Foundation, and 40 years of support from my husband, Anthony Badalamenti, I've been able to live that dream. Over those 4 decades, I've been privileged to join with many of you in some great, epic preservation efforts. This award is very special to me because I've been lucky enough to work with and learn from many of its past recipients, true preservation legends. Because we can be instructed, informed, and inspired by those who've made preservation history, over 20 years ago, I launched with some compatriots the New York Preservation Archive Project, whose mission is documenting, preserving, and celebrating the history of preservation in New York. If you will, capturing our intellectual capital. Not surprisingly, there is more preservation history than one small organization can capture. So as you go forth to make more preservation history, be both a preservation advocate and a preservation archivist. Document your efforts. It's your story, it's preservation's history, and it's worth saving. Win, lose, or draw, your preservation efforts will inform and inspire generations to come, just as the incredible work of the past recipients of this award has so powerfully done. Again, many thanks. And to borrow from Joan Davidson, from whom I've learned so much over the years, her motto, and that of our Empire State, Excelsior, and many thanks.
Thank you all so much for joining our virtual celebration of the Lucys. I hope we're all together to celebrate in person next year. I'd like to thank my colleagues, Andrea Goldwyn, Alyssa Catalano, and Rick Bruner, and our producer, Gil Gilbert, for their help with tonight's event. See you all next year.